So this video is going to be about us cleaning things up. So let's actually talk about things that we can clean up. See, we have a lot of these string literals, and string literal just means us having the string value around, right? This is a string literal. We have a string value, and we have a lot of repeating ones actually, like these yeses or nos. We're repeating it here. We have these, M or F, which stands for file or manual. We have all these messages around. So one thing that we can do is we can go ahead and create a constants file. So let's go ahead and do that. I will create another file, call it constants. So I will say great. And then I will go ahead and create the constants that we will be using. So what I will do is I will actually rewrite all of these messages. I will also go ahead and include the word list file name inside of the constants. I will include the F and M and yeses or nos, and I will make all of them constants, and then those constants are going to have concrete variable names, and then we're going to use the variable names as opposed to string literals within our program. But whenever we want to change the constants, like the values for the constants, then we just need to change them in one place, because maybe we want to use this message somewhere else. And remember, do not repeat yourself. It's better to only have it in one place, centralized place, where if you change it there, it changes it everywhere else. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So let me go ahead and start creating these messages. First I will say public const string. And then I will name this options on how to enter scrambled words. And this will be a message. So let me actually define the value for it. I will say enter scrambled word or words manually or as a file. And this is just a better way of phrasing it. M manual, and that should do it for this first one. Now I will create another one. I will say public const string, and I will say options on continuing the program. Options on there you go. And I will say it equals to would you like to continue. I think this one is pretty similar to the one we had, but it's just kind of good to go over these and see if maybe you wanted to change it. And now another one. I will say public const string. I will name this enter scrambled words via file. So enter scrambled words via file. And I will say this equals to enter full path including the file name. Great. Now the next one, pretty similar. It's going to be public const string again, as you have guessed. And I just need to spell string correctly. And then I will name this one enter scrambled words manually. So enter scrambled words manually. And it will say the following. It will say enter words manually, separated in parentheses, separated by commas if multiple. Great. So then a few more. So just hang in there. This one is going to be called enter scrambled words option not recognized. So once again, public const string, enter scrambled words option not recognized. I will say the option was not recognized. There you go. Now I will create a few for errors, and I will say public const string error scrambled words cannot be loaded. So then it will say scrambled words were not loaded because there was an error. Great. And then I can actually copy this, just get the structure down. This is another error message, and it will say error program will be terminated. Error program will be terminated. And it will simply say the program will be terminated. Great. And then a few more. So I will say match found equals match found for, and then these will be the placeholders. And that should be that. And then another one for when the match was not found. So match not found, and this will simply say no matches have been found. Great. Now a few for the option stuff. So we can actually space these out based on their context, and this is for errors, so we can separate that. This is for the match. So then we can say public const string, and this will be the yes, and that will simply just say yes, or just Y. That stands for yes. And one for no. Obviously this has to be no. And then we will have another one for file and manual. So this will say file, and that will be F. And then we will have manual, and that will just simply be M. Great. Now we have our constants. Let's actually get rid of all that. And this is great. Now let's go and clean up our program. Now a few things. Here, as we can see, if the file was to fail, it would be an unhandled exception. So remember how the file was throwing an exception up? We actually want to catch that exception and do something with it. So let's do just that. You already know that we need to use try catch for error handling. So I will set it up. And then I will catch the exception. Obviously, we want to do all this good stuff in our try so that if anything fails, we can catch it. And then I will say print the error. Obviously, if this was a realistic application, we would also want to publish it to a database, but in this case, we will just be printing it. So I will just do that. And then, guess what? I will say constants dot error scrambled words cannot be loaded. So that easily we just access the error. So if the error contents ever change, if you hover over it, you can actually see what it says. If they ever change, we don't need to change anything here. And if we also want to use this message somewhere else, we can just simply use the constants, which is wonderful. So now we have that down, which is great. And we also want to do something with the error message, obviously. So we will say plus and then EX message. So this is great. We cleaned this up. Now let's go and clean up the rest. I will actually take this and put this back into the constants. So the constants will now also have the word list. So this wants to be public, constant string, and then we'll say word list file name, copy that, and just use it here. Obviously, we just want to use it from the constants. Now let's actually go ahead and switch up our match messages. Remember, we had a message for no matches found, so I will say constants dot no match, so match not found. That's great. And then there was another one for the actual match, so we'll say match found. See that? It's a lot cleaner. No string literals. And then for the file, instead of saying F, it's actually a lot better if we said file, because this is a lot more readable and you can understand what it means. Yet if the option data changes ever, for whatever reason the business says, you know what, it's no longer M, it's now MA, then you can simply do that, but this code here will not change and it will still be very readable. So file, manual, these make sense. And then option not recognized. So we can say enter scrambled words option not recognized. Simply just that. And then we can go ahead here and say constants options on how to enter scrambled words. Great. Then we can say constants enter scrambled words via file, and here we can say enter scrambled words manually. So we clean that up there as well. Here we just want to say options on continuing the program. So that's the message for that. And then our yeses and nos. So constants, we'll say yes, and constants no. Same thing here. This is a yes. So let's go over this one more time. Our matches are now pretty clear. The word list is in the constants. The error messages have been cleaned up. We're handling any of the exceptions. Going further up, all the yeses, all the nos, file, manual, all these messages are now constant. So anything changes, we should be covered. And we shouldn't change anything here. Now one more thing. If anything fails within main, that will actually be an unhandled exception. So what we want to do is actually go ahead and wrap this whole thing up within a try. Exactly. So let me actually set it up and then we'll do the rest. We'll say catch, and then here I will say exception EX. And once again, in real application, we would actually want to print this to the database, but in this case, we're not hooked up to a database, so I will just be printing it out. Because otherwise you want to publish it and publish the errors that are happening, especially critical ones like these. but I will say write line, and then I will say constants, not console, constants dot error program will be terminated. And once again, we're going to be using the message from the exception. So this will catch any general exceptions that might happen, so that we don't have any unhandled exceptions. So actually go all the way down, grab it, and our catch will be there. And here it is. So I can actually remove that space because it's unnecessary. So we have our do while goes, does whatever it needs to do, and makes the decisions based on that, continue the program or not. And then if anything is caught, it will be printed out. Everything else has been written down. So actually now let's go ahead and run our program. But guess what? We don't have a word list. So let's go ahead and create a test word list before we run our program. We're now in the debug folder, and the way I got to it is by going to, let me show you real quickly, right clicking and then saying open folder in File Explorer, and then going to bin and then debug. And that's exactly how you get there. So now I will create a file, a text file, and I will name it word list, because that's how we named it. We can actually check that in our constants, that is how we named it, word list text. It's great. So now coming back to this, each line will be an unscrambled word. So I will say Rome, more, cat, and I will say there, here, hey. So these are some of the words. Great. Now let's go ahead and run our program. Now we'll put a breakpoint at the very end. Let's go ahead and run. So it says enter scrambled word manually or as a file. I will say manually. And it will say enter words manually separated by commas. All right. I will put something that does not exist. And I will say this. We'll say no matches have been found. Would you like to continue? I will just give it a gibberish. It'll keep asking me, keep asking me, keep asking me. If I say yes, I would like to continue, then it'll ask me whether I want to provide a file or manual. I will say manual again. Then we will say, okay, in this case, I'll go and give you Ulmer. And that's my scrambled word. It'll say match found for Ulmer. One is Rome and another one is more. Would you like to continue? I'll say yes. In this case, let me give it a file. And it says enter full path including the file name. In this case, I don't really have a file, but let's go ahead and create one. So I will go to Solution Explorer. Once again, I will say open file in File Explorer. Go to bin, go to debug, and here I will say text file, and I will just say scrambled words. Great. I will say Ulmer and TCA. Let's see what happens. So it's scrambled words. Open it up. Scrambled words .txt. And as you can see, it says match found for Ulmer, which is Rome, another one for more, and for TCA it found as cat. And no, I would not like to continue anymore. And it will end the program. As you can see, it reached the breakpoint, and now our program is complete. Wonderful. Now let's go ahead and unit test it.